Okay, I'm here at Sambo Steve's school in Manhattan. Steve, why Sambo? Like, why not karate? Why not judo or jiu-jitsu or boxing or kung fu or whatever?
To be honest, I mean, I did that stuff before. Like, I guess, like most of us in my age group, you know, we started with other things. So I did do taekwondo, and I did do karate, and I did sanshou before. But by 1998, when grappling was really starting to become more than this fringe thing, you know, I went to compete at the Jean LaBelle World Grapplers Challenge up in Toronto, which is a pretty historic event. It was like, this is pre-Grappler's Quest. The Contenders, if you remember, had just been on pay-per-view like less than a year before. Abu Dhabi, I don't know if it was just before this or just after this, but it was all around that time period. And so I went up to Toronto to compete, and I had very rudimentary grappling training and experience like most of us at that time. And my first real sort of experience learning from a real grappling coach was from Oleg Taktarov, Gokar Chivichian, and Jean LaBelle. So they were doing the seminars that weekend up there, and so I just was like, wow, this is really awesome. So part of the reason I found Sambo was more just by chance. I mean, there was, you know, kind of the way it worked out. So then by '99, I had found my coach, Alex Barakov, who was teaching here in the city, and the rest is history. It's kind of just by chance I ended up there.
So many people in the city like do jiu-jitsu. What's it like being like the counterculture guy, the guy that does Sambo?
It's not easy, you know. I mean, Pete, there's a lot of misconceptions about Sambo, of course. It's always a little more difficult to be the minority guy, but I think in the end, grappling is grappling. Like, if you go to a grappling competition, I don't really look at it more as like a Sambo thing or a jiu-jitsu thing. The way that we train here, at least, is very much based on rule sets, you know. So if we have a Grappler's Quest coming up, we're training for those rule sets. If we have a Sambo tournament coming up, we train for that rule set. So we're very individualized in our approach to training, and I think in that way, you get a very comprehensive experience here. It's more than just Sambo here.
You're a coach. You manage fighters, I believe.
A few, yeah.
You spearheaded the grassroots, you know, sanctioned MMA movement here. You've done so many different things. You're like a Renaissance man. Why is that? Are you bored easily?
I'm stupid. I don't know. I'm a Type A personality, definitely. So I always feel like I need to have a project going on. And people ask me, like, for example, with the MMA thing, like, why did I get so involved in that? I'm not exactly even sure, really, because, you know, I don't train a ton of MMA fighters. Guys that fight MMA with me, I let it happen naturally when, you know, I don't select guys for fights. If somebody comes here and they want to fight, then we do it. And I really enjoy the training process, but I'm certainly not, like, the most active MMA coach out there. But there was just something about it. I mean, if you think back, like, to my first sort of MMA style fight, my only MMA style fight was in '97 at Kneecap. It was a Shudo fight. It was down at Borough Manhattan Community College. And that was the year that, you know, it was banned. That was like 2 months after the ban. So it sort of set the pace for, like, how MMA was viewed here. And after that, I did only kickboxing and grappling in my own competition life. And I never really got involved in the underground scene, even though it was here. And that was mainly probably just due to where I was training at the time and lack of support for that kind of stuff. Just luck of the draw, like what gym I was at. And then by the time I came to Sambo, I was sort of done, you know, with fighting myself and really more interested in coaching. So that was the timeline. But I think I just do it because it's something to do. I really love the sport, and I hate to see injustices and stuff. And plus, you know, like I said, I always like to be working on projects.
Talk about some of the projects you're working on. I think there's some sort of film thing you're doing.
Yeah, we're myself and another producer, Jabari Gray, and a former student of mine, Sean Fitzgerald, who did fight for me. He had 3 fights with me before he moved to Los Angeles. He works in the television industry. He wrote a series based on his own experience training and fighting mixed martial arts here in New York, where it's illegal. And when he was fighting, we were still having problems with the amateurs too. So he wrote an amazing script, pilot, and an amazing series, and so we actually cast it and raised the money to shoot a sizzle reel to pitch it, and we have a couple of entities waiting for that to be finished, and hopefully soon, you know, if all things go well, we'll have a full-fledged TV series on our hands. Al Iaquinta is cast as the lead, and Vlad Kulikov is in it, and a lot of really talented New York-based actors are in it. Our director of photography is super talented, up-and-coming guy who's done a couple of award-winning films, and everybody involved in the project is really interested in the topic. Our sound engineer and sound mixer, his brother is a BJJ brown belt, and he follows the sport, and everybody's really into it. So it got delayed. The shoot got delayed a little bit because Al was hurt at UFC 169, so he couldn't do some of the action sequences. But we're going to be up and running in a couple weeks again. We'll see what happens, man.
You have an open mat here that attracts like a lot of people from other schools. How did you accomplish such a feat? Like, people check their ego at the door and come in and spar with like a wide range of people from other schools. How did that come about?
It's kind of interesting. It kind of goes back to what you said about being the Sambo guy in a sea of jiu-jitsu people. There's something that happens here because we're not a jiu-jitsu school. Like, anybody in New York City, probably anybody in the BJJ community knows there's rivalries. And, oh, you can't train at that gym, and you can't train at that. Oh, and this whole like sort of old school view about impediments, like impeding cross training. But being a non-BJJ school, I think there's a certain thing that happens here where people don't feel like they're crossing a boundary by training with some competing BJJ camp. So we kind of, this is sort of like the demilitarized zone. Like, people can come here, and we got people from Alliance and from Brooklyn BJJ and Henzo's and Marcelo's, and it's just great. So people come here and work out, and it's an extremely friendly environment, conducive to experimentation and training and sparring, and it's a really cool thing that we've got going. Sundays here are one of our busiest days, and one of the reasons is for the open mat. Cool.
You put together some shows way back in the day. I think they're at Gleason's Gym.
Battle of Brooklyn.
Battle of Brooklyn. What was that like? Like, back then, the political climate, the way the sport was viewed. I mean, obviously it's a different time period now than it is then. What was it like?
Sure. That was Battle of Brooklyn was myself and Mark Negron we were partners in that operation, and we did 7 shows. That was in 2006 and 2007 at Gleason's, and at that time we were getting sanctioned by USKBA, now defunct, rest in peace, Paul Rosner, but we couldn't do MMA because the commission had already had a history of shutting down amateur shows, which we all know now was illegal, thanks to you, in large part. But the fact was that you didn't want to take a risk of setting up a show and having the state come in and shut you down and you lose all that money. So at that time, we decided, and now it seems kind of not so crazy, but at that time we're like, hey, let's put all different things on the show. Let's put grappling on the show, Sambo, Sanchow, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and mix it up. So we'll get as close to MMA as we can without actually doing MMA. And then the audience could get a flavor of the different types of ranges of fighting and styles and stuff. And so we did that. And at the time, people were like, wow, that's awesome. There's a show with all these different types of fighting styles on it, which now is pretty commonplace for you go to an MMA show and then they'll have a grappling thing going on also and stuff. But at the time, that wasn't the case. And it was great. I mean, it was not easy. Everybody thinks, oh, you promote a show, you make tons of money. We barely broke even if we were lucky. And we really just did it for the fighters to have a place to showcase their skills. And like, a lot of guys fought in that show that now, like Mike Wacker, who's a pretty famous guy, head official for Grappler's Quest now. Ally Quinta fought Sanda on that card, on our Battle of Brooklyn card, who's now, of course, Ultimate Fighter fame, and it was a really cool time. Very cool.
What do you think about how things are right now? All these amateur shows in New York, and they're not sanctioned by the state. What's your opinion on all that?
Well, I mean, I have mixed feelings. I think it's great that there's a lot of amateur shows, right? I mean, you and I crunched the numbers recently, and it was like, 54 amateur shows last year in New York State that we know of. There might have been more. So in that sense, it's great that there's the green light to do this. The fact that there isn't regulation, I think, really puts the onus on any coach who's going to put their fighter on a card to make sure that their fighters are safe. You have a wide spectrum of quality control when it comes to amateur MMA in New York, and the same goes for Muay Thai as well. And so I would just say do your research. But in the end, I think it's good that there is so much opportunity for New York fighters with less drama around it. I do think, generally speaking, that there needs to be, even if it's a third-party body that's regulating a show, I think there needs to be some serious increase in quality control. I mean, I've been to shows sanctioned by pretty much every third party that's working in this state and seen some pretty horrendous things happening from supposedly well-trained officials and stuff. I mean, even just my own guy fought in a show here in the city, and in the middle of round 2 steps on a water bottle that just was laying in the cage. I've seen, there's just lots of examples of poor quality, ranging from lack of medical staff or poorly equipped medical staff, or officials that don't know what they're doing, untrained judges from the camps of the people that are fighting, no doctor ringside, like everything from soup to nuts. You can find a problem here. Even in the best sanctioned shows, there have been some problems. So just do your research if you're a fighter that's going to go into one of these amateur shows.
For a couple of years, you were doing these rallies, these lift the ban rallies, and you'd have a whole group of guys, and you'd all congregate in front of Sheldon Silver's office and way downtown. Did those stop because the state sent some jackbooted thugs to your door?
No, the state didn't send people, but there's definitely interference from other people, namely Zuffa. They were not happy with certain messages that we were putting out in the rallies. So, like, for example, the last rally that we held in front of Governor Cuomo's office, we had planned for months, and I'm in communication with a lot of the PR people from Zuffa in New York and stuff, and everybody knew about it. We've been promoting it for months. And then within 2 weeks, and by the way, on that day, we also had the first MMA documentary film festival that we had scheduled at Madison Square Garden. So it was supposed to be a whole day of events. Rally at Governor Cuomo's office in the morning, film festival in the evening. We had 3 MMA documentaries playing there. Big shout out to Dylan Wanagil for helping me set that up. And then 2 weeks before our Rally Film Festival, I get word that Zuffa books Radio City Music Hall to do a press conference for a UFC that's happening in Atlanta. So they basically suck the wind out of our sails. We have a small turnout at the rally. Little press show up, although we did get some of the more mainstream press. Most of the MMA media didn't show up, but New Yorker did a story on us, and so we did get some good press, and in fact reached some of the audience that we wanted to reach, the non-MMA audience. But in the end, myself and a couple other people involved in the rallies, we kind of feel like after doing 2 of them that it didn't really have much of an effect on it. It wasn't doing what we wanted to do. The MMA fans of New York were pretty apathetic about it and weren't coming out to support the rallies. We were lucky if we'd have like 30 or 40 people show up, and we just decided there were better ways to bring attention to the issue, one of which is like working on getting a TV show. One was producing the documentary with Colleen, and bringing in ABC, Association of Boxing Commissions, to do trainings and stuff like that. So we just decided we had to take a different approach to getting the word out.
Talk about that ABC thing.
Last year, for the first time, we brought Rob Hines, who's one of the certified trainers for the Association of Boxing Commissions. There's only 7 guys that are approved by the ABC to give this training, you know, like John McCarthy and Herb Dean, and Rob Hines is one of them. Kevin McDonald's another one. So we brought Rob to New York to do an MMA judge and referee training that's approved by the ABC. That last year was an entire weekend course. And then from there, if people were interested, Rob and myself and anybody else who Rob and I could hook them up with would try and get people at least in the door with commissions or third parties to start shadowing and working as officials. And several people from last year's training are actually working now here in New York in some of the sanctioned events, including myself. And then, so we're bringing Rob in again this time just to do the judging course, because judging is really like a hot topic right now in MMA. So, you know, we are just having him do the judging course. That was, of the two, the referee course and judge course, the judge was more attended last year, so we're just doing the judging this year.
Okay, and that's on Saturday.
That's this Saturday, yeah.
I'm not going to ask you if you think MMA is going to be sanctioned here in New York this year, but I will ask that if there was such a thing as buying stock and selling stock in New York MMA, should I be buying or selling right now?
You're talking to a guy who's real frustrated with the process, you know, and it's very difficult for anybody who's been dealing with this for a long time to get motivated about fighting for this stuff year after year after year. And I haven't even been involved as long as some other people like yourself and, you know, Eddie Goldman, and like there's been a lot of people around who have been trying to crack this nut for years. And so do I think I would buy stock? No, I wouldn't buy stock this year. And part of me, the struggle for us, for all of us, I think, in New York, is how much energy are we going to put into attacking this thing again for another year when the result is the same every year. And it's pretty clear that the political forces involved in this are way stronger than what we can do as average citizens. You know, I mean, I don't have $15,000 a month retainer to have a lobbyist up in Albany fighting for my point of view. So, you know, unfortunately, it's the purse strings that dictate the message and the direction of things here, and I just don't see Sheldon Silver letting it get to a vote again this year. You know, not that we're not going to try. Go to the Coalition Facebook page. We just put up information. We're trying to get testimonials from female fans for Lobby Day coming up in March up in Albany. You know, we're trying to get more women to speak out on behalf of MMA, because now that's the current sort of, you know, line against MMA in New York, that it's misogynistic and it promotes violence towards women, and we all know that that's bullshit, but that's the line that Sheldon Silver and the culinary unions and all their cohorts, like the National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence, they're using that line to keep MMA down here. So if you're a woman and you're a fan and you train and you fight, or even if you don't fight and you love this stuff, go to the Coalition to Legalize MMA Facebook page, and you'll see the instructions on how you can submit a testimonial, video or written testimonial that will end up in Albany.
Okay. Let's talk legacy. Sambo Steve's legacy and where he visions himself in 20 years.
20 years. I honestly, in 20 years, I want to be doing this same thing that I'm doing now, running a gym and paying my bills. I basically want to pay my bills. I didn't think I would be running a gym as part of my career. You know, I left my old job when the gym that I was running at night was getting to a point where I needed to decide which one I was going to commit my energy to. And anybody who runs a gym in New York City that doesn't have the name Gracie as their family name knows how difficult it is to run a financial operation here that's a success. You don't get into the martial art gym business to make money unless you want to become a McDojo or something and sell out. But if you want to really run a quality gym that's familial, that trains very good people, that helps build like not just fighters but good solid human beings. It's really difficult business to run. So I would like to just be able to keep running the gym. We're coming up on our 11th anniversary in April, and we're doing good. I way more prefer just training martial artists than I do training MMA fighters. I love training MMA fighters, but I don't push it here. It's really the guys who gravitate towards that. Then we it's a self-selecting process, Even when guys come to the gym and say, I want to fight, I say, all right, well, let's talk again in 6 months and see like how serious you are about training in general. And then we can look at what you need if you really want to fight. These are the totally green people that come here. I'm not talking about guys who have experience that come here. But, this gym, we'll never have more than probably 3 or 4 guys that are fighting at any given time. We're not a huge gym, but because of that, we can really sink our attention into those guys and make sure that they're successful. And that goes the same with our competitive grapplers and stuff like that.
What's your proudest moment as a coach?
The proudest moment? One of the proudest moments is, it happened several years ago with a student of mine, Bao. He comes into the gym, walks up to me and hands me a box cutter like this. And I'm like, yo, what's this for? He goes, I was attacked on the subway last night, defended myself, disarmed the guy, and got out safely without being harmed, and I'm giving you the box cutter as a gift. That to me is the proudest moment of my training people. That's to me is more valuable than any belt that any of my students ever won or any medal or anything like that. Because in the end, that's really what we train for. Is to make sure that we are all safer in our lives. And even my coach focused a lot more on the combat Sambo than I did. But even at this gym, we still focus on the combat Sambo, meaning the system of it, not the sport version of it. Meaning we still practice our knife work and our weapons work and our non-sport work a couple of times a week. And I think if you leave that behind and go totally sport, then you're doing a disservice to all your students. The line between sport and non-sport is pretty fine, and a lot of it is just a matter of intention and situational awareness and things like that. But you still need to have a petri dish in your gym where students can experience the non-sport aspects of fighting, just to at least give them a sign, a bit of an awareness of what might happen if they get into an altercation where you don't have a referee and a nice, safe competition environment to keep you protected. So yeah, that's definitely one of my best moments. I still have the box cutter too. Yeah.
Nice. That's it. That's all my questions.
Cool, man. Thanks.